before a jury of your peers. If you're found innocent, you're innocent. If you're found guilty, you're guilty. Okay? Barkley, who works on television, said, "I can't believe anything I hear on television anymore." Whoa! And that's why I don't like talking about race issues with the media anymore. Because they, the media, love this stuff and lead people to jump to conclusion. The media shouldn't do that. They never do that when black people kill each other. If he doesn't want to talk about it, why is he talking about it? Because Barkley loves to talk, and that's why. And we love to listen, because he's subject to say anything at any time. But this isn't about how bad the New York Knicks are. This is about the steady devaluing of black life. We have to be really careful with cops, the genius Barkley said. Because if it wasn't for the cops, we would be living in the wild, wild west in our neighborhoods. Yeah, Charles. What about all the kids that are stopped on frisk, Charles? What about the one kid who was stopped over 100 times and never get charged with a crime charge, Barkley? What about the other kid in Brooklyn that got stopped over 256 times and was never charged with a crime charge, Barkley? The only reason why he was stopped is because of the color of his skin. And you know, Charles, maybe what you should do is go walk in Brooklyn one day and let somebody don't recognize you, and you're going to suffer the same fate, Charles Barkley. You better get out of that big bubble that you're living in. You better. That bubble. Yeah. Okay, Charles Barkley. We know you're a millionaire. Don't forget, Charles, man. So we have to be very careful with cops, the genius Barkley said. Because if it wasn't for cops, we'd be living in the wild, wild west. Just imagine, they're killing all these black kids. And if it wasn't for them, we'd have less killing of the black kids. Yeah, Charles. Whew. Charles Barkley, you better come out of retirement and go back and play basketball. Maybe you could play netball. That's a game that the ladies play in the Caribbean. That's what you need to play, Charles, netball. You know what I mean? We can't pick out certain incidents, then go away and like the cops are all bad. Charles, do you know how many black kids that have been killed by the cops, Charles Barkley? Charles, how many white males have been killed by cops? Charles Barkley? Anyway, we can pick out certain incidentals that don't go our way and act like cops are all bad. Do you know how bad some of these neighborhoods would be if it wasn't for cops? Yeah, Charles. Oh, my God. He's right about the need for police protection. But when it does have to do with Wilson shooting Brown, seems Wilson was looking to protect himself over the citizenry, firing shots in an open space where people were nearby, and Wilson's version of the events rang as true as a broken bell. There were too many versions of what took place that were unclear, too many questions that needed to be examined thoroughly in a court to let him just walk. It is a bit disconcerting for a black man from Alabama, no less, who has a voice on TNT inside the NBA, to consistently take the position that black life does not weigh as much as others. Barkley, again, leaves us scratching our head, wondering if we should take him seriously or if he's even serious. So, with that in mind, let's go over to our friend Tim Wise. And Tim Wise is a white gentleman. And there is an article appearing in aatp.org. Tim Wise pens brilliant editorial on Ferguson. Most white Americans are completely oblivious. Now, this is an article by Tim Wise. I am just reading the article. And Marjorie, thanks for bringing it to my attention. The article starts. Okay. If there is such entity as the anti-culture, it's Tim Wise. Tim Wise has been one of the major voices in combating institutionalized racism in America for more than 20 years. Following his early college days in the divestment movement to end apartheid in South Africa, Wise has gone on to author 6 books on the subject and has trained teachers, corporate employee, and law enforcement members in overcoming the internalized racist view that they didn't know they had. In short, Tim Wise is not well loved by conservatives. He's also probably the nation's foremost authority on race relations today. And in the work of Ferguson, he says that most whites are simply oblivious to their own internalized racism. According to Wise, racist ideology have so thoroughly permeated American thought patterns and institutions that they have shaped our fears, policies, even our dreams and aspirations, that it's simply become the framework through which we view the world. This article was originally posted to AlterNet and spells out pretty explicitly white Americans' massive blind spot when it comes to the often quite neutral or even benign racism that we act on daily. We are reprinting it in its entirety because, well, every word of it is absolutely true. Not that it's a bit of it will make a difference to some people. Some people reject it out of hand, clinging to the framework they know lest be shaken out from under them. So it starts, it's a reflex. And here is the quote. This is Tim Wise now. I suppose there is no longer much point in debating the facts surrounding the shooting of Michael Brown. First, because Officer Darren Wilson have been cleared by a grand jury, and even the collective brilliance of 1,000 bloggers pointing out the glaring inconsistencies in a version of event that August day won't result in a different outcome. And second, because Wilson's guilt or innocence was always somewhat secondary to the largest issue, namely the issue of this gigantic national inkblot staring us in the face and what we see when we look at it, and the more to the point, why. Because of this kind of racial Rorschach, is it not, into which each of these cases, not just Brown, but all the others, from Trayvon Martin to Sean Bell to Patrick Dorisman to Ace One Watson and beyond, inevitably and without fail morphed. That we see different things when we look upon them must mean something. That so much of white America cannot see the shapes made out so clearly by most of black America cannot be a mere coincidence, nor is it likely an inherent defect in our vision. Rather, it's a socially constructive anti-Semitism that blinds so many to the way in which black folks often experience law enforcement. And you know, that is absolutely true. That is absolutely true. Not to overdo the medical metaphors, but as with those other cases noted above, so too is this one the disturbing number of whites manifest something of a repetitive motion disorder. It reflects nearly as automatic as the one that leads so many police or wannabe police to fire their weapons at black men in the first place. It is a reflex to rationalize the event, defend the shooter, trash the dead with blatant racist rhetoric and imagery, and then deny that the incident or one's own response to had anything to do with race. You see, as soon as, Tim Wise, this gentleman really gets it. And I always play a piece on Tim Wise on education, and because he gets it, he really gets it. As soon as that incident happened, the police went into spin doctoring and all in a sudden released a video of the store with the person with Michael Brown. Let's say it's Michael Brown. And right away, it distorted everything. Even other people were saying, well, he stole these cigars. It had nothing to do with the shooting. Nothing. But that is how they blow your vision. And they pull you into their web. And all of a sudden, you believe in everything the media tells you. Because they're going to show it to you over and over and over and over. And then all of a sudden, you start to believe it. And when you start to believe it, they start to show you it over and over and over again. And then they're going to call all these different type of languages, these words, these words that they use to describe these people. And if we would just sit back and tell ourselves, I posted a video from England on our Facebook page. And there was a gentleman with a knife. And he was brandishing the knife in a square, in a public square. And there were like 2 police officers there. He had a knife. And it is my understanding that some of the same difficulties we have in the United States, they also have in England as well. If you heard the show last Wednesday, I think, there was one of my family members from England, and he talked about some of the things that happen in England as well. But in this situation, the police, instead of shooting at the person and killing the person, they had a knife. They tased the person. And it was finishing like 10 seconds. Done. Over with. Arrested the person. But in this country, it's done differently. The article goes on, not to overdo the medical metaphors, as with those other cases noted above, a disturbing number of whites manifest something of a repetitive motion disorder. It reflects nearly as automatic as the one that leads so many police or wannabe police to fire their weapons at black men in the first place. It is a reflex to rationalize the event, defend the shooter, trash the dead with blatantly racist rhetoric and imagery, and then deny that the incident or one's own response to it had anything to do with race. Now here are some reflex. To deny there was anything racial about sending around those phony pictures claimed to be of Mike Brown posing with a gun, or the one passed off as Darren Wilson in a hospital bed with his orbital socket blown out. Reflects. To deny there was anything racial about how quickly those police were believed to be genuine by so many who distributed them on social media, even when they weren't, or how difficult it is for some to discern the difference between one black man and another. Reflects. To deny there was anything racial about how rapidly many bought the story that Wilson had been attacked and bloodied, even as videos showed him calmly standing at the scene of the shooting without injury, and even as the preliminary report of the incident make no mention of any injuries to Officer Wilson, and even as Wilson apparently had a history of power-dripping belligerence towards those whom he interact, in a propensity to distort the details of those encounters as well. Reflects. To deny there was anything racial about Cardinal fans taunting peaceful protesters who gathered outside a playoff game to raise the issue of brown deaths by calling them crackerheads or telling them it was only because of whites that black had any freedom at all, or they should get jobs or pull up their pants or go back to Africa. Reflects. To deny there was anything racial about sending money to Darren Wilson Defense Fund and explaining one's donation by saying what a service the officers perform by removing a savage-like brown from the community, or by referring to Wilson's action as animal control. Reflects. To deny there was anything racial about reaction to evidence of weed in Brown's lifeless body, as with Trayvon before him, even though whites use drugs at the same rate as blacks, but rarely have that fact offered up as a reason for why we might deserve to be shot by police. Reflects. To deny there was anything racial behind the belief that the head of the Missouri Highway Patrol brought in to calm tensions in Ferguson